How you going?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. End of a long day today. It's
Yeah.
the start of a long one for you, I guess, but it's good. It's good.
My
No, all
week
good.
isn't that bad. How has your week been?
Weeks are flying by, but together with all the renovations and everything like that, like there's just not an hour that I'm not making a decision. It's actually there's a lot of life lessons in renovating a house. And this is what I mean about there being life lessons in everything that's been going on, the selling, the the renovations, working with builders and a lot of different personalities as well. I have learnt so much
Yeah.
about dealing with different personalities. Is a big thing, right? That
Yeah.
transcends into every other part of your life, your working life, and even your relationships to a degree. But oh my gosh, yes. So my head is full of learning, and it is absolutely full of just having made decisions all day. So, but it's good.
Oh,
No, it's good, and that's why my week is busy. So it's not as though I'm flat out working. I'm just flat out doing
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're
Oh,
getting there.
goodness. And it was funny as well. I was listening to, I've got to say, I've got to stop saying it was funny because I realize I say that on like every podcast.
Oh, you do?
Oh my goodness. It's so annoying.
I haven't noticed.
Probably not. It's just me.
No, yeah.
But when we were talking to Lee, I know we're going to get into different podcasts a little bit later today, or later this podcast. Um, Lee was talking about Vishen Lakiani, and I love his podcast, right? So I went for a walk yesterday, and I was listening to his podcast, and he was saying, "Oh my God, it blew my mind." If our listeners are listening, go check this one podcast out. But basically, he was talking about he went to a place in India and he was like there was something about learning how to use your intuition that a lot of people forget how to be intuitive. It's either the gut feeling or a higher power or intuition. But he said he went to this place in India and he didn't believe it until he actually saw it, but he said he was told to write rainbow or a sentence or something, but in a rainbow of colors. So each letter was a different color. So he wrote this simplistic sentence and he wrote down the sentence in different color markers. And then this girl had a blindfold over her and she was told to recognize with her intuition what the words were, but also what the colors were as well. And he was like,
Okay.
never would have believed this would have happened because I just thought it was some hoax or some, we were blindsided or something. But he was like, I was able to see it right then happening. And there is even places in China who are cultivating intuition in children because it's like,
Mm.
cultivate it, nurture it, and then that will serve you in business and relationships. And wouldn't it save you a lot of heartache if trusted our intuition? How many times have we gone, oh, I don't know, doesn't seem right, and then months down the line we're like, I
I
knew
knew
it,
it. Should have listened to my gut. Yeah, lots of times actually.
and we dismiss it, right?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times there's big decisions hanging on it though, so I can see why we kind of go, I've been taught all of this stuff and I should use my brain to make the decision. um, I've always been one to follow my heart though, so if my heart says yeah, and
That's
it's really
right. Yeah,
worked
yeah,
for
yeah.
me. Yeah,
Intuition, heart, whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yes, and to me they're the same, one and the same as
Yeah.
well. But I have had this conversation with a few other people as well, and one of them pointed out that, and it does make sense, unless you've got your PhD and you have spent a lot of money and time getting it, and then it doesn't gel well with you. But what he said was that people who are very highly educated, like they're purchased opinions, they're purchased um, their purchase decision making skills override what seems to come for free.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
you value what you've bought rather than
Mhm.
what is in you. And so that's why people tend to go, oh, it doesn't feel right, but my head, like the numbers stack up. Everything I've learned says that should be okay, that should be right, that should be the way I go. And so you do follow what your head says, what your PhD says, what your purchased education says.
But what I found really interesting about what he was talking about was not only listening to your intuition, but we are also conditioned for this life. We are conditioned in our environment, with our community, with the rules that we need to live by. There are so many different cultures and countries in the world that don't follow what we follow, that don't have the rules that
Mm,
we have.
mm,
But we've chosen to live in this country, to live in an environment where we are structured, where we take money as value, that we take success as being, the higher income you earn, the better job you get, this is what you're doing. But that is a conditioning. And until people realize that there is a level of conditioning that we can either choose, or we can kind of go against it, in that aspect, I feel like it's your level of conditioning that you can go against. Like, you don't have to conform to the rules. But if you're choosing to live in a society, there's certain aspects in the way you were brought up that you are naturally going to pick up. It's like biased opinion, like you said. You can either look at your logical brain, or there'll also be a biased opinion in you. Doesn't matter if you've got all the evidence in the world. If your logical brain says that, well, this is the information I've got in front of me, but your biased brain will be like, well, this is what I've been brought up of, and I'm not sure. You're always going to take that biased opinion, right? Whether
mm,
whether
mm.
you know it or not, whether you're
Yeah,
aware of it or not.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's
No.
where lots of people then end up saying, well, that's sexist or that's discriminatory, because they don't realize they've been conditioned in that sense of, oh, women should do this or men should do that. You know what I mean? Like pink and blue,
Mm,
for example. That's conditioned.
mm. Yeah, absolutely is true. And I have read, and I don't know this for sure, but I have read that those colours were reversed at one stage in history. Blue was for girls and pink
I
was for
thought
boys. And
I thought I read that too.
yeah, it could have been like a Facebook post that someone's just made up. And I don't know. I honestly don't know. I didn't follow it up, but
If
I
our
did read
audience
it.
is listening, tell us if that was true.
Yeah, did you read it as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's right. So we are conditioned to certain things. And it does also, we might have discussed this another time, might have been recorded, it might have been just one between us. But, you know, when you meet someone, you go, what do you do? Or in our industry, who do you work for? Okay.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
are defined by who you work for and what colors you wear on your uniform, right?
And the
So
badges, the logos. Oh my
the
goodness.
logo, the kit, what kit do you wear? Yeah. And so you begin to even define yourself by that.
Mm-hmm.
Hi,
Yeah.
I'm Kelly and I work for, and it shouldn't be. And I think when I left cricket, I I felt that I understood that. I understood that I didn't have I didn't belong to an institution
Yeah.
for a while there, but it was a really good lesson. And Terry's the one who woke me up to that,
I really
opened my
like
eyes
the
to it.
fact that with Hinsa Performance, when I first joined them, that Aki Hinsa was such a great inspiration. And bless him, he passed away before I could actually meet him or have a
Oh,
conversation. But not that he was that accessible, but I don't think anybody is not accessible. You know what I mean? Like, there is
yep.
just connections, and it's pretty much what we're doing with it every podcast, like 1 degree of separation between the
Mm,
guest and their prospective guest, and
mm-hmm.
the people that they want on board. But basically, Aki Hinsa was talking about core values. And when I was in the Hinsa induction in Europe, when I was away, I found it so fascinating that that topic came up as well. How you introduce yourself, how you define yourself. But let's scale it back a bit. What are your core values? What do you value? What is your purpose? Are you
Mm,
aiming for your purpose? Are you in control of those things? And they are such simple questions, but very hard hitting. Like, they can't take like 10-15 minutes to answer. You need kind of jot it down, maybe come back in a couple of hours and a couple of weeks, review it. And I remember writing down the answers to those 3 questions just before my interview, I think, because obviously I was prepping. And then when I went to the induction, this was quite a long way after I had got the job. So it was kind of like, got the job, wait. And then I had the induction. And then I realized that every time I answered those questions, I thought they would be different. I thought there would be different answers, but actually they were just confident. They were more confident. They were more self-assured. They were more determined in their answers, rather than it was, oh, maybe I want this, and maybe this is it. And I was like, no, this is what I'm thinking. This is what my values are. This is what my morals are. And it's definitely a life lesson for everyone to go through. But then they go through life not having to answer these questions either, right? Lack of awareness, right? Lack of conscious awareness.
Have you ever done or heard of Lifebook?
No.
Haven't done it. So it's a series. It's a book of your life that you write, but it guides you to ask or answer, certain questions, and then every decision ultimately I think there's 11 or 12 categories, and at the end, like, you come to, this is what I want to get out of my relationships. This is what I want to get out of my work. This is what I want to get out of my physical health, my mental health, every kind of health. And I can't remember all the categories, but the decision that you make ultimately for each one, the result for each one, that every decision you make in your life, you go, is this decision taking me toward this or away from this, or is it a sidestep? So is it getting me up the ladder, or is it not to where I ultimately want to be? And then once you get up there, or you realize that in fact that wasn't what you want, and you can realize that you're on your way there and going, it's actually not, I thought I did.
Yeah.
It's not what I want. Yeah, I don't actually want to own a Tesla. It's like, you can have all the money in the world, and that's what you thought you wanted when you couldn't afford one. Then when you can afford one, you go, actually do I?
Yeah.
And the answer is no for me. So you can change your ultimate goal. But that life book thing was exactly what you were just saying. It gives you the opportunity to answer these questions that you might not ever come up against or ask yourself or be asked. But you've been lucky. Hinsa might do a version of it.
Well, I think with those 3 questions, it was in Aki's book anyway. So it was about his life story, but also it engages you to ask questions. And I love those types of books. It's almost like a love-hate relationship with those types of books. You know, when you open a book and you just want to read it, and then all of a sudden it's a task, and I'm like, oh no.
I know. I just want to keep reading. Yeah, I do. I absolutely do.
But then it's so beneficial for us to do that, right? Because that's the purpose.
Oh, yeah. Yes. You've got to take the time to do it. Says me, who never takes the time to do it. I really don't.
Yeah, but you know what? Actually, on the back of Vishen's book, his new book, Buddha and the Badass, which Lee was talking about on his podcast, for some reason, intuitively, it'd been sitting in my Amazon basket for such a long while. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get it. I'm just going to tweak finances, and I keep buying a lot of books. So I'm just like, okay, so I want to do it for obviously my business, because we do book of the month with Fitness Chicks. But also I'm like, oh, do I really need to buy another book, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, for some reason, trusted my gut. I was like, it was in my basket for a very long time, but I'm just like, no, you know what? Add to basket, buy, just get it, because everything's so instantaneous in the modern world anyway, in the Western world anyway. And I started reading it, and oh my goodness, is it life changing?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
To give you a little bit of a teaser. On the first chapter, it actually talked about, let's see if I can find it actually. On the first chapter, it actually talked about where you can go with business. But before you can actually understand what that means, it was trying to take your values and trying to take those values and then come up with a strategy of what your business plan is. So say, for example, like a company has its vision or its mantra or its non-negotiables. And then I know Mercedes had it themselves, and they've got these like little pillars of what they expect from themselves, what they expect from their employees, and the whole company. And I was like, well, where are they from? And I thought, you can just nick them from different companies. And I guess some companies do that, which is valid
I
if they want
guess.
to do it. But then Vishen talks about what matters to you. And what matters to you was ingrained when something big had happened in our lives, like when we were a child, when something had happened and it had molded our frame of thinking. So he said our values and our morals don't really change that much because they have been influenced by something that's happened to you. So my little three things, I say little, is being seen, being heard, and being loved. Because there were three instances that were reoccurring in my life where I didn't feel seen, where I didn't feel heard, that I didn't feel loved. And I was like, well, if those are my values, then I've then put values on consideration, enthusiasm, optimism, community, family, and then self-growth in terms of vulnerability, authenticity, humility, nurturing, even solitude. And then what was the last one? Values of discovery, just being curious about things and being innovative. And those then came back to having four key values that I would have for myself, but also in any business that I conduct, do those values match? And that then takes you further in your own business, in your own relationships, and kind of molds into something more valuable, right?
Right.
Have you ever done
Valuable,
that?
unique.
Have you ever looked at in depth of where you are, where you've been before where you want to go?
Absolutely. That's just very much a part of my personality because I do love going on long, lonely walks or isolated walks, I guess. And my mind just ticks over nonstop. Like I'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning with like business ideas, and I do, but I don't write them down, and then by the morning I don't remember them
Yeah,
half
that's
the
the
time.
only thing. I do
Gone.
the thing. That's why I was laughing, because
Yeah.
it's so familiar to me. But we need to write
Yes.
them down, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll come up with brilliant blogs and essays, and the words just flow, and they're just so, oh, they sound so good. And then I wake up and go, what was it that I just need to write it, or just have like a little recording on my phone, I
Oh, that would
guess.
be good.
There'd be some kind of app. I just can't use this dumb thing. I just can't use it. It's the worst.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Bring back my iPhone now. So I don't remember the names of the books. Oh, some of them. But anyway, yeah, you've read it more recently. So I
Oh, I
still have.
haven't. I haven't
Oh,
read
you
the
haven't read
book.
them?
It's still in my hold in my basket that I was talking.
Ah,
So many
okay. All
books that
right.
I want to
No,
read.
there's
But
2 or 3 that I have read.
oh, okay.
I just cannot tell you what information comes out of each book. So it all sort of comes together. But there's, which one have you got? There's
Well,
Breaking the
no,
Habit
I
of Being.
haven't got any book.
Oh,
I
I
think
get.
Supernatural or
Yes, Becoming Supernatural.
something like that. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
that's his most recent book, but
Okay.
it's more podcasts that I've been listening to. So I'm
Okay.
pretty sure he's featured in Jay Shetty, which is one of my favorites, Vishen's Mind Valley. And then most recently, there was a female racing driver who used to race in NASCAR. And you know how, like, you and I are very synced in terms of, oh, something comes up, it's come up because it's synced with something else and it's happened to be something that we can attract, kind of thing. So it's like attracting what we need at that time. So I'm a huge believer of that, of everything happens for a reason, but also you attract the lessons that you need to learn at that time. So this podcast, or like this feature, had come up on my YouTube, and I haven't really searched anything regarding this racing driver, although I do love her. And it just came up and I was like, oh, Joe Dispenza. Oh, let's click on it. And what I loved about his teachings is, even though I haven't read his book, I've listened to his podcast, and he explains stuff so well. You know, when people know what they're talking about and then they can explain it in such a simple way. So a quote from that cast basically is, he was saying, how you think, how you act, how you feel is your personality, and your personality create your personal reality.
Yeah.
I was like, that is so like mind-blowing, right? That we have to take accountability for our reality, but that isn't what people want to do. Like many people look outwardly and then they either blame the culture or the company or the person or their parents. Whereas I'm beginning to accept that everything is happening because of every decision I've made, and that decision has influenced my reality in terms
Yeah.
of where I've lived and how I've lived. But in
Yep.
order to accept that, I have to be aware of what my intentions were and whether this is the person I'm aiming to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Is my personality matching the person I want to be in 10 years? And if it's not, how do I change it?
Yes, you
In
make the
order
decision
to become,
based on the person you want to be, right?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I also think what comes into that sometimes is self-sabotage. So
Oh,
there,
100%.
you do think so too?
100%.
Yeah. Like there's a fear that you are running headlong into something that you actually can't, you're not ready for. Perhaps you don't feel ready for it. And I have been in those positions too, like you're hurtling into it, like you're funneling, everyone's funneling you into it, and you just backtrack right out of that little funnel that everyone else wants to
Yeah.
be in, but you pull yourself out of it. And the lesson is going through it, getting through it, and coming out the other side. But you backtrack, and so you get, you go down another funnel of a similar, possibly harder way of doing it. But yeah, self-sabotage over and over when I was younger.
And that just takes you a little while longer to get where you want to be, right?
It does, right? Yes, yes, because it puts you, it's uncomfortable to be in those positions. So years and
Yeah.
years ago, I was asked to do exactly what my career has sort of turned into now, which is more of an educational side of thing, but not even just in strength and conditioning. So I'm educating in a totally different sphere, but everything I've learned as a coach, or every ability and connection, ability to connect, has transcended out of coaching into educating. Same, really. Coaching, educating.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so yeah, so what I'm doing now, I was actually meant to be doing in 2009, but it's taken me 11 years of prodding, people telling me I can do it, me telling myself I can do it, and then not doing it, you
So
know.
did you recognize self-sabotage then, or do you recognize it now looking back?
Now looking back then I would have called it fear. I was scared, and I was scared, and it was fearful, but I also self-sabotaged myself by not pursuing or knowing that out of not even facing that fear, but just, even going ahead and failing would
Mm.
have been preferable to backing out and not doing it.
See, I'm the same way. Well, I was the same way. I'll correct myself. In
Hmm.
relationships, I would self-sabotage because I was so scared.
Right. And is that something you recognize now rather than then?
100%. Because
Right.
every decision that I know now, I made because I was learning my lesson, that I was repeating the cycle because I hadn't learned my lesson. And I feel like you keep repeating the same cycle until you learn to do
Yeah.
it differently. It's almost like, if you do the same thing in the same way, you're going to get the same results. So, how do you do it
Yeah.
differently? In terms of
Yeah.
recognizing the fear, recognizing the hurt that I had inside and the reason that the fear was my wall, now I can recognize it.
Yeah.
But don't jump in spite of fear, right? The fear is always going to be there, always.
Gosh, it is. It is. And even now that I do all these things I was meant to be learning and getting and refining, getting better at over the years, and people keep asking me to do it. So I'm obviously, or hopefully, good enough at it that I'm not going to ask her to do it. I'm good enough. I'm good enough at it that I keep getting asked.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know where I was going with that.
In terms of
um,
fear is always being there.
oh yeah, so even though I keep getting asked to do it, and you've got to sort of, I've got to go, okay, so I'm learning, I'm getting better, the fear is still the same every single time. And I think Bruce Springsteen, it was Bruce Springsteen. He was asked how he felt before he went on stage every time. How old's Bruce Springsteen? He's been doing this for a long time, right? He
Yeah.
said, every time I go on stage, I have butterflies, like I'm nervous. So, it's
And
okay. It's
on the
okay.
back of that, and talking about somebody famous, Anthony Hopkins, however
Hmm.
old he is, and the phenomenal actor that he's become, he even says that he feels like a fraud. So he has imposter syndrome, even now. And it's like
Right?
that still is there, but he'll keep doing it. And I know a lot of coaches have gone into contracts where like, well, what am I doing here? I mean,
Yeah.
they question themselves.
Yeah. Can't everything we're saying here, this is how I like to do it. So there's the spiritual way of putting it, which is the way what we're referring to now. We're both really, that's us.
Yeah.
We're spiritual.
But
But
not
there's this,
everybody is. So they
no,
can't
not everyone
understand
is.
it.
And so this is what I want to say. There's a
Yeah.
spiritual way of explaining things that very often there's like an old fashioned saying, like you just said, oh, and I went, oh, that's the one that connects it to that. Man, I wish I could remember 3 minutes ago, Tulse.
You've got a lot going on. Was it we were
I
talking about
do, but
imposter syndrome.
no, it was before that. And we were talking. Oh, all right. So there's a saying, like an old cliche that goes with each of it, and there's a scientific way of saying it. That's why it was like Benjamin Franklin. You said you said, keep doing things the same way and
Same way,
expecting a
same
different
results.
result. But expecting a different result is just, foolishness.
Insanity, yeah.
Who said that? Ben Franklin was
Was
one of
it
those
Einstein?
scientific people. Einstein? Okay, so
I don't,
still a
I
smart
don't
dude.
know. I don't know.
Yeah, but he was someone sciencey, right? So, that's like, it's both the scientific ish, like research behind it,
Yeah.
and a little bit of old saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what they always say, don't keep
Mm.
doing the same thing, getting a different result. And then our spiritual spin on it. So I like, whatever we think of or whatever we talk of here, I like to go, that's the spiritual way of saying it. This is the scientific version of it. And this is the cliche, old
Yeah.
saying version
Yeah.
of it. So that we're sort of covering, not everyone just goes, oh God, Kelly and Tulsi.
No.
Them and their vision, and Jay Shetty, Joe Dispenza. Not everyone reads those people, but
No, exactly. And this
yeah,
is the thing. I really like the way Joe, going back to his book and his methodology, I really like the way he describes it. Not only does he describe it in the most simplistic way, he can be a little bit oof in your face because there is a lot to take in. But what I felt was he has it backed with evidence, and he does exactly what you've just said, is you can either take it in a spiritual way or you can take it in a scientific way. So his scientific way is you change the brain's neurological structure and the cellular structure. You alter the state of the DNA. And this is what we were talking about in the back room or green room, basically, last podcast, is there are areas in the brain which are conductive to forming diseases, and their patterns are continually forming those diseases. But how can you rewire that patterning to a healthier cell, a healthier living? And those are the things that he then takes it in a scientific principle. And there is evidence to show that people have overcome diseases because they followed this specific patterning. And he even says, I can't give you a time frame of when this actually will happen because it depends upon the person. It depends upon
yes,
how much turmoil that they've gone through. And we were
yes,
talking about it in trauma regarding people's injuries, whether it's something as like a hamstring strain or a pull or a broken ankle or a disease. uh, all of those things have emanated from something.
yes. Absolutely. I got sent a research paper the other day. I've been doing some, not so much research, but anecdotal evidence, truly, with a lot or a big group of Parkinson's disease
Yeah.
sufferers, people who are diagnosed with it. They don't want to be called sufferers necessarily, um, but people who have been diagnosed with it. And this research paper uh, found evidence for the fact that people who, even as children, who didn't understand the trauma that they were going through, but their bodies understood it as a stress or a trauma,
Yeah.
um, like you said, built a pattern into their well-being, or a way for them to survive it. But surviving doesn't mean thriving, right? So they survived their childhood, and it's things like lot of little traumas can equal a big trauma. So it doesn't have to be sexual abuse, although it can be. That can be the one big trauma that can just tip you over straight away into a huge pattern, and change so many things about your
Yeah.
body that you take into adulthood. But it can be lots of little traumas as well, that it's like a dropper full of this and a dropper full of that. It still spills the cup over in the end, doesn't it? The cup of stress is what I'm referring to. So in the end, that vial that can be filled up with stress is just filled up with all different ones. So it's just little things. But this research paper was, oh my gosh, it took me forever to get through, because there's so many things I actually had to look up. I didn't understand a lot of it. So it took me days, I'm not going to lie, days to get through it. But yeah, exactly what you're saying. So it can change the body's response to things. So sometimes they're little things and the response is huge. It's like hyperactive, and that's more stress, right? So people get huge stress over little things. They're making mountains out of molehills, and what would be the Joe Dispenza, not the Joe Dispenza version, but maybe the Vision version of that. So Joe would say it alters the structural,
Yeah.
or what it alters, this paper suggested, was that it alters, so our hormones, so Tulsi's
Yes.
estrogen is different to my estrogen. Okay, so my estrogen is made up a dropper full of renovator stress and a dropper full of, do I use, which shade of beige do I use? Yeah, I know, right? So it all sounds so silly, but it's those little dropperfuls of
Yeah.
stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there'll be another version of it. But yeah,
But it's
exactly what you
affecting
were
the
just saying.
underlying hormonal balance, and those are the hormonal shifts that change the molecular structure of a cell, surely.
I'm not going to say yes or no. There'll be someone smarter than me who can say that for sure.
Wow,
But
somebody else
it
can
makes
find out and
sense.
tell us.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Well, he does talk about changing the molecular structure, but the thing is, you have to be so ingrained in this method to try and change that. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes consistency.
Mm,
And one of his
mm.
ways of doing that is meditation, but it's also about physical and mental health in terms of what you put into your body, how you sleep, how you take in things. And it's such a vast topic anyway, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Hey, Tulsa, is Joe the guy that had a back injury when he was young and they told him he'd never walk again? Am I thinking of the right
I
person?
don't know.
Don't
I
know.
don't know his history about it. I haven't stalked
Okay.
him that well.
Look at us both sitting here going like this.
I don't
Um,
know. I don't know.
yeah.
He
Okay, so
might.
there
He
was
might be. He
one
might
of
have
them.
himself gone through a trauma that led him down this path. Because it always
I'm
is.
not
Oh,
sure it
Lisa,
was.
right?
Yes. And I think it was Joe Dispenza, but I'm not going to guarantee that either.
Okay.
I'm just got my head full of paint colors at the moment.
Okay, so a little bit of a change in topic for our
Hmm.
audience. We're going to, obviously, this is our last podcast of this series, and I was wondering, what have you learned, Cal, about this series, and which guests made an impact in terms of them being on? What was food for thought for you? What did you learn from the series, but also from our guests? Because for me, I really enjoyed it from day one. I didn't expect to enjoy it this much. And they say if you enjoy something, keep doing it, right? But I really liked having conversations with you. We've always had conversations that kind of trigger something, and they
Yeah.
trigger ideas or creativity or different things for us. And that's really hard to find in people. But when you do, keep them close.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I really enjoyed, doing the podcast, actually collaborating on something that I was previously fearful about.
Yeah, oh, for sure, right? And we talked about this before too. Both of us have been asked to do podcasts before, or, start a podcast before, and neither of us did it. This was about 4 years ago. I think both of us were asked to be part of one, individually, separately from each other, and we
Yeah.
both went, "Yeah, great idea. No, not going to do it."
Yeah.
Or said we'll do it, said we'll do it, said we'll do it, but sabotaged our way out of it, right?
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
was how it went down. And so, yeah, there's been lessons learned in that this is fun, and it's just fun to talk to you, really. But the people we've spoken to, Ben, Ben Williams, that was only
Yeah.
last week, right?
Yeah.
So last week we spoke to Ben, and he was very open about his story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And then during the week, I had a Zoom call with Steph Mundy, who I missed our podcast with her, but I
Oh,
had my own Zoom chat with Steph
yeah.
during the week. And I told her the story of Ben um, before the podcast comes out. Sorry, Tulse. So I told her that story because it was really it was great to hear that he's been so successful, and truly he seems like someone who's done the life book thing and made every decision he made took him toward his ultimate goal.
Yeah,
He's
he's a really
that
great
person,
example of that.
isn't he? Yeah, he is. And yeah, I really loved his story. So that's a story I think, oh gosh, everyone should listen to that one because it's his story to tell. He tells it so much better than I
Yeah.
can I can tell. And then Lou was lovely to speak to, our little Snow White, a little English rose. Um, she was lovely to listen to. She was also very vulnerable in
And she
spoke
was
about.
open with being vulnerable. Like what I
Yes.
found interesting was talking about postnatal depression. It's still a taboo subject, and people who are coming out talking about what they're battling through can be quite overwhelming. And to go through different anxieties and stresses,
Yep.
I reckon that was really a great cast to do for people
Yeah.
to kind of understand. And also
Yeah.
Chris's. So you were renovating at the time, but I
I
took
was.
Chris,
Yeah.
and he was talking about how he recognized the postnatal depression in Louise before she did.
Yeah. So how
And
did
that
he
was,
recognize it?
well, he was really you know how your friends and family get that when you come home stressed or frustrated, you do take it out on your loved ones, and they know that this isn't typical of you, so they do accept you for, flaws and all. But he recognized that in Louise because she just wasn't being her usual self, like in terms of her reactions, and she wasn't as engaged as when he would say something, she wasn't as engaged as she used to be. And I found that really interesting that he picked it up. But then I was working with her at the time, and I picked it up, but intuitively, because with her and we go into our own inner world, and we kind of self-isolate, and we deal with things that we want to deal with before we ask for help, or it gets to a stage where we need to ask for help. And I just recognized her being a little bit more recluse, but I kind of respected that space because I know that I need that for me. It's almost like respect my space when I need to
Yeah.
go through things. So I
Yep.
felt like I just thought she was doing that, but I didn't know her as well as Chris would day in,
No.
day out, right? When you wake up with
Right.
a person, when you see them interact with children, it was really interesting, really interesting.
Mm. Yeah, okay. I haven't listened to Chris's yet, but I will have to because that is interesting and also heartwarming that he picked it up and
Yeah.
didn't just, react to her reactions, which is,
That's so common though, isn't it? It's a trigger
uh-huh,
because you've had some trauma. So that person's reaction is a trigger for you, and then you react in anger or frustration or
yeah, it just spiralizes, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Spiralizes? Spirals?
Did you
Spirals.
create a new word?
I think I did. Oh, good. And another one I really loved, like really loved, was Lewis.
Oh yeah, he was another person who was really honest about his mental health and his loss.
Mm, mm. Absolutely. But also his story about how he went into a new business and how that happened unintentionally. So he's, I guess, someone who's become very successful almost by accident. And you hear this a lot of times. It's sort of a meant to be thing, but
Yeah.
the decisions he made didn't necessarily, he didn't really have a goal. He was, or not the goal that he's achieved anyway. Maybe subconsciously that's where he wanted to be,
Yeah.
but he's achieved it by a journey different to his, what he would have explained if he had to verbalize it. Does that make sense? So
Kind
if
of. Yeah. It's almost like
you
he's
can
fallen
say no.
into. No, I was going to say, do you mean that he's fallen into decisions that have been put in front of him rather than seeking out opportunities to enhance that outcome?
That much better put than I did,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, that's what I mean. So
Okay.
I love listening to him. And I guess all in all, I loved speaking to people outside our industry.
Yeah, me too. Well, I don't know if you've listened to Finn's. I loved
I
Finn's
haven't yet.
because,
Well,
like,
he's a
I love
BMX
all
rider,
of our
right?
guests. Sorry, say that
Yes.
again.
BMX rider, Finn Chapman.
Well,
Chapman?
enduro rider. So
Enduro.
yeah, BMX is slightly smaller and they go through a specific circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Downhill is pretty much, yeah, downhill riding. But his conversation about how he's overcome certain barriers within himself, going for something that he felt, you know what, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to, pursue this full time. I've got a lot of respect for him, but also he in the podcast he does explain about how he's developed himself. So he tries something out and then develops it, or he thinks, oh, how can I get better at that, and then finds a way. And he was very much a, let's find the solution to this problem. And mentally, everybody does that. Human brains love to find a solution to everything. Like, it could be an easy way out, it could not be, it doesn't matter, but it's a solution,
Yeah.
right? It's a solution to
Yeah.
a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, which brings to mind another person that maybe we could speak to at one stage is Joe Broadbent, who was the head coach of cricket team that I worked for,
Yeah.
female cricket team, and just her way of doing that as well. So she would have like a little saying that we would adhere to, and the first year was the first year the whole competition existed, right? And it was find a way. So every time we got stuck, every time we were in a game and we were behind, all you had to remember was find a way. How easy, right? And we did. We found a way. And, says me sitting on the sidelines, nothing I could do at that stage. I wasn't going into bowl. I wasn't going into bat.
Yeah,
But
but
the
you found a
players,
way to make your coaching conducive to the players, right?
absolutely. And we didn't
There's always a
have.
way.
Yeah, there is. There's always a way. And as a female team, we didn't actually have access to a gym. We didn't have our own gym. We
Mm.
borrowed like high school gyms and things like that in the first year. And the logistics of having everyone in a high school gym, like a roster of, it was a big roster, bigger than a high school class, in a gym that you didn't know where everything was set up. So
Yeah,
sometimes you'd write a program and get in there and go, this is not going to work. So then you have to find a way to make it work,
yeah,
right? So that find a way has really stuck with me and resonated through everything I've done since. And that's been 4 years now. But really, of everything I learned from every team I've ever worked with, that's the one that I would say has taught me a lesson, that one particular year, and those 3 words. And I'd love to talk to Jo. I think you'd love her because she's just freaking hilarious.
yeah. Let's get
She's got
her
the
on.
best stories. She has got the best stories. She really has. I hope she tells them. Might have to.
Do it.
We'll all have to have a beer at the same time so that Jo
Yeah, we'll
has a
do an
beer.
evening one where, well, actually, can I do it? Can I just have wine in the morning?
Yeah, you can have 1 o'clock because Jo's currently in New Zealand, so it'll be for us. It'll
It
be
will be wine o'clock for
one
you,
o'clock.
but it'll
Yeah,
be like morning drinking for me.
that's all right. Day drinking.
I'll spike my coffee. It's fine with Bailey's or something.
Yeah, yeah. Espresso martini.
Ooh, I haven't
You
had
do
those
like them,
in.
didn't we have those in Melbourne? Or you had those in Melbourne? Is that what you had?
No, you had that. What did I have? I
I
had
had a
some like
French martini.
sweet pink something. Or did I have? I can't
I
remember.
had a French martini.
You did
I
have a
think you,
French martini. I think
yeah.
I had a Caprioski? Oh, I always
Yes,
pronounce
that's
this
yes.
wrong. All of the Brazilians will probably be like, Tulse, you've butchered the language.
Yeah, say it again.
No.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Capri. Yes, that is what you had.
Yeah.
Caprioski,
It was
Capri.
so funny. For those who don't know, well, I don't think we've said this story ever, have we? But
Not that I know of.
we met ages and ages ago when I was starting up my business. And I had interviewed Kelly because I was just interested in her background and finding female mentors. And it wasn't necessarily to be mentored by you, but I feel like the connection is obviously developed into friendship.
Yeah.
And I constantly learned so much from you. And it was funny when we first met in person, it was in 2019. No, it wasn't.
20.
It was this year.
This
My
year.
goodness.
Yeah.
It was this year. Of course it was. It was March this year. And we went scouring across Melbourne, walking our way through the city. And it was so much fun because the weather was beautiful. And then we were like, okay, I needed to focus on a little bit of a project I had going on. And we started drinking. And oh my goodness, like Kelly literally flew out with these ideas. I can't think as well or be creative when I'm drinking, but that was hilarious. I'm like,
Yeah, I'm
I
like
have to
Kelly
really
on
focus,
steroids.
not be drunk, so I can write everything down. And like when you get home and you're like, oh, my parents shouldn't see me drunk. Like, come on, get it together. It was a bit like that. I was like, all right, don't be drunk right now. Focus and write everything down.
I know, we were trying to be so business-like. Like we were in this, it was a pub, I guess, but it was a pretty nice
It was
one
it
because
was
it was
really low attendance as well. It was a beautiful
because it
pub,
was the beginning of
but it was the
COVID,
beginning of
right?
COVID, so
Yeah.
it was literally like, get the hell out of there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we were off in this little sectional by ourselves, but we had the computer there. We looked very professional, but we were just
It was
I do
hilarious.
remember lounging
It was
around.
the best business meeting ever.
It really was. It was fun. It was fun. Yeah.
So, what
So
do you think? What do you think about 2021? Where are we going to go with this next series? What do you think?
I want to talk more to people outside our industry, even though I've just said Joe.
I
And
agree.
Joe's a
Yeah.
coach, like a skills coach, head coach. So same industry but different job, and kind of like Lewis, same industry, different job. Same as Louise
Yeah.
or Lou,
Yeah.
same industry, different job. I love it's like someone said. One of my clients said to me the other day, "There's a book that she read, and it was Jane Austen. It's not a Jane Austen book, but it's the Jane Austen story of Pride and Prejudice told from a servant's point of view.
Oh.
And from the servant's point of view, those four girls that are in Pride and Prejudice are like little cows, you know, because they're not rich and they're middle class, I guess, in that era, but still had their hair done. They didn't lift a finger for themselves,
Yeah.
and the servants did everything in an era when everything that needed to be done was very laborious.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were a servant or a housemaid, darn hard work, right? There was
Yeah.
no dishwashers. And told from the servant's point of view. And so this is what I love hearing, what someone in the head coach's position looks at my job as, or my strength and conditioning role as. What do they expect from that person? Who have they worked with, who they really loved working with, why? I think it
Mm.
just helps you become a better strength and conditioning exercise physiologist,
Yeah.
right? So that's where I see my 2021. Listen to us both
I
just blanking
know. We're
2020
like
out.
a year behind. It's like this year has gone so fast though.
Truly has. Insanely
Insane.
fast.
Yeah.
I write the date from time to time when I once a week write my programs or do my doctors and physios reports, and I look at the date every time and oh my gosh, like I have to force myself to write the 10th or October. I go,
Yeah.
what the heck, it just does not seem right.
No, it's like snowballed, right? It's just super speed.
mm.
And
Mm.
this year what is it, 10 weeks left of this year now?
I couldn't tell you, but it would be about that. Yeah.
Obviously, by the time this airs, I think it will be end of November. So,
So
oh my goodness. No, I love
yeah.
that. It's funny because I was thinking not only just relationships regarding coaches and athletes, or, you know, relationships between one another, but it's what sacrifices have people made within their relationships, within their jobs. You know, how
Mm,
has dating become different, not only from our day and age, but also with these apps. I'm not an
mm,
app dater. I have tried it because I'm always an advocate of try everything once, and if you don't like it, then you've got substance behind that. Or it's almost like I feel like sometimes I'm begrudgingly trying it and I'm not really trying it, but I've tried it
yeah,
on more than one occasion, and I've just not agreed with it because I'm not a you know what, I'll admit, I'm not the type of person who will swipe because I'll either go, oh, I don't know who you are, because obviously
yeah,
this is just on face attraction and physical attraction. And if I find
yeah.
them too pretty or, you know, too good looking, I'll still swipe no. So I'm just like, well, there is nothing for me, because I feel like I need to get to know an individual, and that's
I
how I
do
fall
too.
for them.
Yes, that's what's attractive to me is the
Yeah.
whole package, not just a face. And I don't know how I'd go. I'd probably be the same with you
Yeah.
if I had
So
to
you would
swipe
be
left or
single.
right. Probably, yeah, yeah. But what I
So
meant was,
just
that's not
getting,
what I meant. But
yes, like
yeah, I just
Rachel
swiped.
was unapologetic about her being single and having sacrificed her career. No, sorry, sacrificed relationships for her career, because she's unapologetic with being single. Like I don't have to be single. I'm choosing to be single, and this is the path that I'm choosing to take. And I feel like taking conversations with coaches, and also, you know, in different relationships, with marriages, with young teenagers, seeing what it's like for them. So I think that one might be interesting as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But this is Rachel Larson,
No, Rachel
Rach
Larson. We
Bolkovich.
can probably pick her brains about this though, because she's
Okay.
obviously, she's talked to me about these things as well, and I feel like that could be brought up to light, because not many women talk about it.
No, no. Is it a question that gets asked very often and put to the side,
Probably
blown
not.
off, or not asked? Yeah,
I think,
okay.
yeah, it's either blown off or just not asked. And I feel like, you know, the more vulnerable we are, the more open we are, the more information that comes out. If you don't have topics of conversation about it, well, it's never going to be brought to attention, right?
Oh, look, so many times I've been asked a question that I haven't asked myself, and I don't know the answer to it until you've asked me or someone else has asked me, right? So, as when I say the words out loud, then you go, "Oh, I didn't know I felt that way," or
Yeah.
"I didn't know that about me." But then also sometimes when you push for an answer, you go, "Actually, I'm just saying words, and I don't even know if it's the truth. It's
Yeah.
just what's coming out for the right now." So
Trying
I
to
don't
fill
know.
a space, right? Trying to get an
Yeah,
answer for the sake of getting an answer. But what
yeah,
you're doing by saying, oh, I don't know, that's really respectable. Like to try and have
yeah,
somebody just to say, look, you know what, I don't know right now, and
yeah,
I'll it's food for thought. I feel like
yeah,
that's so much better than trying to get an answer for the sake of getting an answer, or coming up with an answer that you think they want to hear,
yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think, okay, so I've been listening to all these body language uh, things. So I'm absolutely by no means good at it, but there are little things that come up over and over and over with a lot of people. And yeah, I just think that, like you said, saying something for the sake of saying something, you can tell when people are doing that or they're trying to fill that gap. There's little telltale signs that.
What are they?
So one of them is the shape of the mouth. So if there's a big smile, like you big smile whenever you're saying something. So the words are coming out freely. You're giving everything you've got. You're not actually searching for words. So there's the if there's a bit of a pursing of the lips, I guess, or a shortening of the mouth, that means there's more to be said than I'm holding back. And it doesn't
Oh,
mean you're lying, it's just that you're not telling the whole story. Okay,
that's
so that's interesting.
interesting.
Oh, I know, it is so interesting. And another one is the eyes. So if you look right, you're bringing a memory it's tricky because it's a memory, but it's a memory of things you've thought about that haven't happened yet. So it's the future, but we're calling it a memory because in your mind you've lived it.
Yeah.
Okay, but looking
Yeah.
left is this is an actual memory. And then when people look left and are recalling an actual memory and thinking about an actual memory, what they then do with their hands and their body becomes very important, because if they self-soothe, which is something like this, or that it's they might be speaking very confidently about it, but they're actually not.
Mm.
Okay? If palms are open, they're like, I'm being very vulnerable. Believe me. Come, yeah, just come with me and believe me. And this is like I'm protecting myself. I'm talking about a memory as something that really happened, but I'm protecting myself from it, or from the feelings that come with talking about it. How cool, right? So
I
they're
love
just
that.
the few little things that I've picked up on, only because they're very consistent throughout the human race.
And if people were to look a little bit more into this, I'm just asking for myself, basically. Where would
Asking
you
for a friend. YouTube tells YouTube. So there's quite a few people who do it, and there are some who they all seem very highly qualified, but everyone's trying to introduce their own personality onto it. So there's a guy called Bruce Durham who's an English guy, and he's quite eccentric,
Okay.
or he comes across as quite eccentric, and talks very, very quickly. So he's got that certain personality that some people might be drawn to. There's a few American people who I'm not drawn so much to that personality or that accent that comes with it. I don't know. It's not even the accent. It's just, maybe I just enjoy the eccentricity of Bruce Durham. He was the
I
first one I
think
listened to.
I think sometimes our emotions tag on to what we like about a person, and their tone of voice and their volume, their pace, their
Yeah.
intonation, is it?
Yeah. 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 All of that.
All of
I
that
guess also,
definitely makes an opinion on how can we follow this person a little bit more, or engages us that little bit more.
yeah, you get engaged with them, but also it's the topic. So the American ones at the moment are totally absorbed with Trump, and there's a lot of it about Trump. There's also a lot about Meghan Markle because she's in America at the moment. Okay, so it's quite negative, all the stuff they're discussing right now, and so you can just be dragged down with it, and I don't want to be. And
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm kind of like, I'm just putting that on the shelf for now until they sort of, because one of the ones I enjoyed listening to were like old interrogation tapes of people who were committed or charged, sorry, with murder and things like that. And they're saying, okay, so he's actually telling the truth here, or he's not telling the whole truth. We can't say he's lying, but we can see that he's not telling the whole story as he knows it or she knows it. Um, so they're the ones I actually really enjoyed, and plus I think they're also the easiest ones to follow along with and read, because these people are in high pressure situations, and it's like you learn so much more in a high pressure situation because
Yeah.
there's more to
Yeah.
read, there's more to see, there's
But
yeah.
remember, when in that high pressure situation, you go back to your basic functions. So if you end up closing off solutions, telltale signs, I think that sometimes high pressure situations can close off certain things that you can actually be aware of, right? So it's almost like,
Mm-hmm.
when people are stressed, that they don't think clearly, that they don't speak in a certain way, and that's not conducive to creativity or problem solving. And it's like, the more situations that you can get in those high pressure situations, but kind of lower your hormonal output, and then kind of go back to that serene state in those situations, that's going to serve you better, right?
Yes, that's very much what they were saying.
Okay.
Although they did say what they'd like to do, or the way they get their best result, is by observing someone in a conversation like this, and the way their hand gestures are, their mouth gestures, and their eyes. So they've got the baseline, basically, same as you do with a concussion. This is the baseline. This is how you're acting now. Is it a significant enough difference that we can say, yes, you're concussed, or yes, you are lying, or yes, you're telling the truth. So, but they don't always get that kind of opportunity to see people before they're charged with
Yeah, well,
murder
it's about getting to
or
know their
crime.
personality, but you can't do that in those situations, can you?
No, there's no baseline. But they did say that's why they leave them alone in the interrogation room for a time when they're not stressed, or they still film them when they're with a family member or something like that. So that's when people are obviously still stressed because they're in jail, but less stressed because they're not being interrogated. So there is a semblance of a baseline.
Yeah.
I just find it really interesting. It's
I do too. I'm really into psychology anyway, which we talked about before, but
mm,
I'm trying to look into books for cognitive behavioral um,
yes.
aspects of psychology. So if anybody can recommend me a book rather than a textbook, I've been looking online, obviously, with me and my books, but they're
Yeah.
like proper textbooks that you need for like a degree. And I'm like, oh, do I really want to go through that rabbit hole?
I know. I don't. So if you find that book, you let me know too, because
I
I do find
know.
it a fascinating science.
Same.
Yeah. And they also do say that it's, it's a branch off a tree. It's not the trunk of the tree, but it's, part of what goes in toward the understanding of the human psyche.
You're just blowing my mind now. There's just too much
Am I
information.
sounding really smart? She's laughing. She's not saying yes.
No, I'm just like, it's a branch. Like, how do we get to the tree trunk?
I know you have to be a psychologist and a doctor and a surgeon I don't know, but there's lots of different modalities that go towards understanding.
Yeah,
Of course, there's that intrinsic understanding of human nature as well. And that's called getting to know someone, right?
yeah.
Really getting to know someone. So, yeah, there are ways of doing it without studying for 6 years, but that'll be understanding one person. Won't be understanding the whole human race, right?
No. But that's what's interesting. Like, put somebody in a different culture or in a different environment or different situation. How do they act, right? But we can't do that
Mm,
because it's not ethical.
not right now.
It was back
I,
then. Maybe it will be in the future. Who knows?
yeah.
Thank you so much for listening in and watching us on YouTube, listening to us on Spotify and Podbean for this series of Unapologetically You by myself, Tulse, and Kelly. If you can, please head on to our Patreon page, because obviously we are doing this off our own backs, and we would appreciate any contribution that could come our way. The Patreon page has different tiers, so if you just want to support us for a small fee per month, that would be greatly appreciated. If you wanted a little bit more like the back room or green room casts, a few snippets about what we're doing, what else we're talking about, that's also online too, so you can upgrade that subscription. Or you can go to the higher tier, which talks to you in forums, in podcasts, and invites you as a guest. So you have various options to support us, and as I said before, anything is greatly appreciated. So please check that out, and we will be back in 2021 for our new series of Unapologetically You. So hopefully we will see you then.